Welcome to the latest episode of Trojans Wired, the podcast, which is an in-house production of the website Trojans Wire. We are part of the College Wire Network. So we bring back USC women's basketball analyst Cece Clay and also special guest Kameo Williams, Gems in the Gym. You might have remembered National Basketball Scout. He was a great guest for us a few weeks ago when we talked about the transfer portal. But one of the things that Cece Clay wants to do on this podcast, educate people about the larger process, the machinations, the workings of the transfer portal, just to give you an idea of what's happening behind the scenes, what players and coaches and schools are going through. It's Portal 101 here on our podcast. And so, Cece, take it away to start our conversation with Kameo Williams.
So I just want to bring Cameo on to talk about the portal, talk about NIL, a player's value, toxic locker rooms, a full agenda of things, and how it affects team culture, and why kids are going in the portal and so on and so forth. So, Cameo, thanks for joining.
Absolutely. I'm excited to be on, excited to share, excited to even learn because you're always going to learn something. So I'm excited to be here. Thank you guys.
Yeah, so I wanted to start off this conversation by talking a little bit about the portal and what actually happens when kids jump in the portal. A lot of people aren't aware, but I've been seeing tweets and TikToks with players saying, look what happened. I have to practice here now because my gym won't let me have access, and so on and so forth. It's really important for people to understand that when these kids jump in the portal, schools have every right to take away their scholarship, to take away gym access, to take away everything from them because they're no longer on the team. So, Cameo, I wanted your insight on that and how you feel about that, and if maybe kids should be able to have access until they find a landing spot, or what goes into that? Is that an NCAA rule? What is going on with that?
Okay, so the first of all, it's a great question. The initial thing is um, I want to make sure I touch on this first. My personal opinion is if the player hops in the portal, that's one thing. If the coach nudges them into the portal, my opinion is different. So if the coach says, hey, you know what, next year, we think got somebody in, I think you should look elsewhere. Then that's, if I want to keep the facilities available, to that player since I basically am ushering them into the portal, I totally understand that. If it's you just hopping in the portal looking for an opportunity, looking to go elsewhere for whatever reason, then, then you're on your own. You shut that door. There's not many people that can be in a relationship and get a divorce and say you still have the key, you still drive the car, still eat my food when you want. That's a tough pill to swallow. Um, there's not a rule, but I did want to make sure I corrected something. You are still on scholarship, right? You are still on scholarship for that year, right? So you still going to class, you still have access to your meals, your housing, you still have that. But these extracurricular facilities, remember those facilities are for the team. Those are team facilities. You have chosen to no longer be on that particular team. It does not mean that you cannot access the rec facilities, as a normal student on campus. But these actual facilities for the team, no. Just like a regular non kid that's not on scholarship, they're not coming into Galen, and working out. They're not coming into those facilities and working out. So it works both ways.
Matt, you want to chime in?
Not at the moment. You can continue. I'll be ready to kind of add layers to this as we go along.
Okay, okay,
Okay.
okay. Yeah, I noticed. I just looked at the count of the portal, and it was something like 1,523 people entered the portal, and right now there are 655 commits, and the 34 that have withdrawn. Now I'm wondering if those were like, hey, I want to fill it out, and then if I come back, do I get access to the facilities again, or they jumped in with access to the facilities? Because that's a sticky situation. You know what I mean? You jump in, and then you come back, and you come back to the school that you were leaving, in a sense.
Right. So I think there's several variables that kind of play into that, right? So you have situations where sometimes there's great relationships between players and coaches, and the players like, hey, you know what? I'm graduating in 3 years or whatever the situation, but I got a really good relationship with you. I'm letting you know I'm really going to test the waters, with the portal. I'm not closing the possibility of staying, but I'm going to test the water. If you have that level of open communication and a great relationship with your coach, then I've seen players come back. They still have access to the facilities. It's just a different vibe, right? I've also seen where players choose to test the portal because their coach left. Like
Yeah.
they don't know who the coach is going to be, so they enter the portal. While in between the time of you entering the portal and finding the spot, you get a new coach, or you have an idea that that coach is coming, and at that time you communicate with that coach, and you say, you know what, I'm gonna stick it out. I'm gonna stay. So they withdraw their name back. So it really comes down to the level of communication and the relationship with your current coach as far as testing waters, and then maybe there is no coach, and now the new coach is coming in, and you do want to go ahead and rock with that coach. Like I'll use a name like Tanaya when she entered the portal. She made it very, very clear that she was open to returning to Florida State. Ultimately, that's not what she decided. But I know that staff. I know Tanaya. She was very open and she was genuine about that. So that's an example of a player that was kind of, let me kind of figure it out. And there's so many variables with people going into the portal that maybe you're just going to be the only stud coming next year. And you're like, man, I want to play Sweet 16, Elite 8, Final Four. You don't want to be in a rebuild, per se. So you may be testing the waters because of that. Maybe you have an agent. That agent has influenced you, which is a whole nother topic that we'll get into. So I'll leave it there because we'll get into that later.
Speaking of, or continuing on with the portal talk, as you see yesterday, I tweeted out, conferences. I tweeted out conference totals in the portal, and what stood out to me was the SEC is supposed to be one of the best conferences, in the nation, but they had the second highest portal players drop into the portal than any other conference. Now the Big 12 had the most at 75, but I think that was due to coaching changes. But the other thing that stood out to me, you see a lot of kids jump into the portal because of coaching changes. But in the SEC, what stood out to me was that there are a lot of kids that jumped in the portal from colleges where the coach is the name brand of the school per se and not the players. So, and I'm not saying anything's wrong with that, but I just found it very interesting. Schools like, where's my list here? Ole Miss had 7 kids jump in the portal, and last year she had the same amount. Um, LSU had 6. Kim Mulkey, popular figure. Mississippi State, he's supposed to be a really, really warm and welcoming and loving coach. He had 7. So and those weren't because of coaching changes. Those coaches are still there. So
Mhm.
it was just interesting to me how those schools, which have a coach that is, a name coach, a very popular coach, has a turnover every year. And I always thought, when you're building a program, I understand it's NIL, but still, you still want quality over quantity. You know what I mean? Because every year you're having to rebuild now. And I would just think that when you're a coach like that, with that type of name or popularity, that you could build from within, or at least keep some of your players. To have a constant turnover year after year is interesting to me.
Well, I think that there's such levity and nuance to it. A lot of these people aren't leaving; they're being nudged, right? I'm not saying which and whatever. I won't get into that, but they are. And you have where the coaches believe that I can do better. I believe I've hit the ceiling. I believe I can do better, and therefore, I want to. Everybody's leasing. CC, everybody's leasing. The days of I'm going to finance this car, buy this car outright, are over. The player is leasing for 1 year. The coach is leasing for 1 year. Everybody's on a 1 year deal, and people believe that they can upgrade. They genuinely believe that they. I'm just that's what it is. And so what you're seeing is people say, you know what, I'm stuck. I'm not getting past the Sweet 16. I'm not getting past the Elite. I really got to upgrade all the way across. I need depth. I'm gonna need to go 8 to 10 deep with people that can play against the South Carolinas and UConns. And if you're a step away or 2 steps away, that's what they're gauging it at. And they're saying, I don't have a year to develop you or 2 years to develop you for you to play against that. I thought you could when you came. It's not happening. So they're like, hey, I think you would want to look elsewhere. And that's what's happening.
I mean, I could see that with freshmen, and I could see that with three, even four people jumping in the portal. But when you have
Mhm.
6 or 7 year after year, either the transfers that you have coming in year after year, I know it's a fast process, but I mean, if you're doing that same thing year over year, I mean, I would think that, hey, what am I missing here? That I can't keep four people, from the previous year. I'm just at a
Yeah, I'm
loss.
not, yeah, but though, well, I'm willing to bet without getting into the specifics that if you go, a lot of those players weren't impact players.
Yeah.
Some
Seven?
of them, some of them not
Seven?
even, yes, some of them not even
Seven out of
rotational.
out of 14. If you're carrying a roster of 13 and seven going to the portal every year,
Some of them are not
then
even, they're not even rotational players. You see.
yeah,
Like for real. Like I'm not saying that's right. I'm not getting into right and wrong. What
yeah,
I am saying is that is a trend that I am seeing. I could take in Indiana State had 12 people in their
yeah,
portal,
yeah.
right?
So did
Um,
Arizona, except for one, but that was because of the
right.
coaching change.
And so it's so many variables. You have unhappy players, you have unhappy coach, you have underperforming players, right? You have I just believe I can do better. In the case of like Ole Miss, you look at them and on paper, it's a significantly better team.
Oh yeah, yeah. She
like,
upgraded.
right, like big time, and that's the key for some. Some believe I can upgrade now. Keep in mind, we've all made wrong cars. I mean, keep going back to that analogy. And some cars, you're like, man, this is the one. This is the one. In 2 months into it, you're like, man, they didn't even check. This thing is a gas guzzler. Is this? It's not performing well. But you thought when you made the purchase, based on the information you had, this is what it was going to be. And then you get them on campus and they miss their girlfriend, they miss their boyfriend, they're homesick. They don't work as hard as you thought they worked. Or your style of coaching, they don't appreciate, right?
Yeah,
So there's all these variables that end up going to, it's not productive enough for me. And that's whether it's not productive in terms of playing time for the players and them getting what they want, or on the coaching side where it's not good enough for us to win and conducive to my style and culture. And people now are saying, "Well, shoot, let's just change it." That's what we're saying.
yeah. I'm not saying it's right or wrong or either. I'm just like trying to figure out, why that happens, and you're explaining
Hmm.
it very well. So I appreciate that, and that
Hmm.
you led into another segue about, kids and coaches, and let's get into toxic locker rooms, and especially with the new NIL, you see a lot of players coming in, and there could be culture issues due to plain old jealousy. Coaches and players bumping heads. Players coming in thinking that they were going to get a certain amount of time, and they're not. But the one thing that concerns me is that when a player makes a decision to leave a school, that they start yapping out the mouth instead of keeping it in the locker room, because they don't want to hold themselves accountable for what has happened, with their playing time. And it
Right.
could be that they're a great player. It just they didn't fit into the system, or they didn't want to fit into the role that the coaches had designed for them. It could be a lot of reasons why, but I
Hmm.
think that sometimes self accountability, instead of throwing, all deflection onto the program, has to be a big part of it. And that being said, with the new NIL and money being involved and so on and so forth, do you think that confidentiality agreements or NDAs should be part of that process?
Um, Man, I don't want to be ambiguous here. I'm gonna say no.
Explain.
I'm gonna say no. Um, And I'm gonna say no all the way around, right? Um, because I also think that I have so much on this one because I also think that coaches get the short end of the stick, right? So I don't want them to have a closed mouth because they're almost forced to. And what I mean by that, for those of you out there listening, is players make TikToks, players make tweets. Um, some are direct shots, right? Some try to be comedic with their shots, but you get the vibe and you get the tone. And I feel like coaches are damned if they do, damned if they don't,
Yep.
right? You ain't gonna come on their TikTok and repost it like, see, that ain't what happened, or you ain't gonna follow up their tweet. It's almost like they're stuck, and I don't think that's fair to them. Um, on the flip side, you have some people who have been in toxic situations, and I think that it's been covered up in some situations, and now other people are walking into those same toxic situations. And so, for that reason, I wouldn't necessarily want it to be confidential, but be honest, speak with some integrity, speak about your specific experience, not something you heard, not something maybe, your specific experience. And so I just wouldn't want that shut down because of that. I see the value in NBA competition. Oh, I can see the value. Um,
Yeah, because when you have players coming in that some might sign a deal for 250K, and
oh,
you know,
wait. So I'm misunderstanding. Are you talking about the amounts should be confidential in NBA? Is that what you're referring to, or
no,
just?
no, 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 no. I'm talking about everything in general
Okay.
because let me take it back. So here's how I look at it. If I'm a player, okay, and I transfer one time because I'm not happy with the situation I'm in because I feel like I should be getting more playing time, right?
Hmm.
So I
Hmm.
transfer one time. And then um, at the current location, my playing time is not what I thought it was going to be again. I'm working through some injuries and so on and so
Hmm.
forth. And then, I'm relegated to the 10th person off the bench or the ninth person off the bench. To me, you know, I got to look at myself. I can't deflect and say, you know, I'm not I'm not feeling heard or you know what I mean, or whatever, or,
Hmm.
I know I'm a good player and so on and so forth. Whatever reason the kids are giving today, to me, if you're transferring more than once, if you're on your third school or fourth school, to me, you got to take accountability somewhat, as in, like I said, maybe you are a good player, but the system doesn't fit you or your role doesn't fit you. That's not anybody's fault. You know what I mean? It's just, it didn't work out. Or it could be you're not as good as you think you are. And that's a tough pill to swallow for kids today because a lot of kids feel entitled. A lot of kids have helicopter parents who want to make things easy for them, who don't want their kids to fail, who don't want their kids to go through hard times. So they nudge their kid too, jump in the portal, we'll find a spot where we know you can play,
Hmm.
which is fine. But I'm just saying you can't continue to play the victim and put it on the coaching staff when the coaching staff has 15 players to manage in this new NIL era, and they're trying to do the right thing. But ultimately, the goal of the coaches and the program is to win. They can't play you just because.
Hmm.
You have to fit into the program.
Right. These
You
are
know what I'm
not
saying?
equal. These are not, everybody doesn't get 15, 20, 30 minutes a game. It's not going to happen. In knowing that, in all the variables that you stated, somebody's going to be unhappy. And that's okay to be unhappy, but let's place the source of the unhappiness. Okay, I'm not playing. I'm not playing enough. Why am I not playing enough? And one of the things that's not spoken of enough is you may be good enough. You really may be a Division One player that can go and make an impact, but you play behind Juju. You play behind him in the Fidalgo, right? You play behind Olivia Miles. You play behind Anaya Latson. So what do you want them to do? What do you play behind first round WNBA talents, right? So I say that to say that sometimes the depth chart is just not in your favor. And whose fault is that, right?
It's
Sometimes,
nobody's fault. Yeah.
right? Sometimes, and I have a phrase that I use now. What you commit to may not be what you arrive to. Right? I'm gonna say that again. What you commit to may not be what you arrive to. So it is nobody's fault that you commit in the fall, but we didn't know Olivia Miles was becoming available, and now we went and got her.
Yeah.
Like we, you know what? I can't wait. I'm gonna get all these minutes. Well, you didn't know Kiki was coming, you know, and she's better than you. And so, as excited as we are for the portal, as excited as we are for opportunities and NIL, players also got to understand that what has come with that is constant change and fluidity, right? And it's not the coaches. Yes, I'm going to take LeBron when he becomes available.
Yeah.
At the time, I told you, CC, you come in, you're playing these minutes, CC. You're coming in. I don't know Candace Parker is about to hit the portal at April 5th. I don't know that. Are you telling me not to go for her? Yes, I'm going for her. But,
Yeah.
and you're probably just, oh man, Candace is going to be on the side, not realizing, well, that's coming to your minutes. And how do you feel about that? And so there's so many variables that are impacting why players are unhappy. But then once you become unhappy, how do you carry that
Yep.
going into
Let
the
me
toxicity? Go ahead, Matt.
let me jump in with a follow-up here, Cameo. And I'm sure Cece wanted to get to this. Let's get to it right now. The nature of NIL contracts, like that's what I'm really, really interested in. How much of it is flat guaranteed money? How much of it is incentive based? When agents who are increasingly central to this process, are they drawing up all sorts of opt-in, opt-out clauses, conditions, terms? How nuanced is the current NIL setup, and is this everything that you're describing, Cameo? Do you think that lends itself to needing more clauses or fewer in terms of how NIL contracts are currently structured and drawn up to account for minutes, to account for injuries, to account for all those variables that you've been mentioning? What's your assessment of that?
You know what? It's great that you asked that, Matt, because I was just at the live period in Phoenix and got a chance to, sit down with coaches and talk directly. It's so fluid right now. Remember, we're at the beginning stages of where it's really booming. You have the agents who are so aggressive, which is why we have a lot of, I'm gonna say, key players that entered the portal this year, because I believe the agents are like, let's test it out. Because at some point we're gonna have some rules and regulations, right? So they're trying to get to the money
It's coming.
now, right? But the agents are now, let's get in now before there's this structure. So I get that. Consequently, though, what is happening is from the coaches to the players, no one really has a good idea of what to do. I've heard from teams that they pay their money out for that year in two payments. I've heard from teams that pay it out one time. You come in, here's all the money. One coach told me they paid theirs over ten payments over the year. These are talking for the season. Um, so everybody's doing it different, man. So it's hard for me to give you a universal answer. Um, what I heard most was signing bonus, and a total of four payments. That tends to be the thing that I'm seeing. I never heard of incentive clauses. I didn't hear about opt in, opt out. And in fact, when we was at dinner Saturday, I was like, whatever. If I'm gonna give somebody hypothetically $100,000 and I want to give them, I don't know, 30 at the beginning, they're explaining to me they're evening out all these payments. I was like, well, wouldn't it make sense to get the balloon payment the day after the portal closes? And everybody at the table was kind of like, that's, I was like, I just, you know, now if you want to enter the portal, then the contract should be written where you forfeit that final payment. You know what I mean? You forfeit that final payment. If you're on our roster, portal closes, here's the final payment because no one's going to lose out on the money. You know what I mean? If you're in the portal and I owe you $100,000, I'll give you 25,000 more dollars. That's your last payment. When you get in the portal, do you really expect me to give you the $25,000? You're gonna take that money and go to the new school who's gonna give you a signing bonus on top of that. Man, I'm not sure if I answered your question, but I didn't hear nothing about performance-based clauses, minute restrictions or maximums. I didn't hear anything of that sort. Obviously, the amount that you get proportionate to that team's salary cap. I'm gonna use that term. Um, because if you're one of them ones, you're probably getting 30% of whatever that is. So if a team's cap is, I think Virginia's got like 1.7 million in NIL money. So if they would have got Olivia Miles is probably 500 to $700,000 of that money. That means I'm saying you're the impact player. You're one of them ones. You're coming in. You're that one. And so
And
I
you know
think
what? And Cameo, you know what? I don't mean to cut you off, but that's what other players have to understand, and that's part of building a good culture, right? If you have one impact player, or even two, or that's getting 30% of the NIL cap or whatever it is, as a coach, you have to make sure to explain to the players, hey, this is what it is, so they know coming in. You know what I mean? Because if they don't, then that locker room is going to be a mess because here's this player making 250K and I'm making
mm,
50K, but
right.
he or she is getting the ball 80% of the time. I'm only getting it 20% of the time, but I know I'm good or as good. But since they're making the most money, it's just crazy. You know what I mean? It's just, how do you manage that as a coach?
But what I will tell you, if it was me, I would go get me some D2 coaches on my roster. The reason I would D2 coaches and JUCO coaches. Obviously, I still want them knowledgeable and all that. But the reason I would JUCO coaches because they're able to turn over every year. They're used to this every single year, so they're used to developing in short, compacted, compartmentalized windows. They're used to everything being an accelerated process. They're used to having a whole new team and building around a whole new
Every
team.
year. Yep.
The D2 coaches, the reason I would get them is because they have always dealt with caps. Always, just not an NIL way. Meaning, if you're a D2 coach, your program may be, I don't know, $35,000 for your scholarship. It's
Yeah, they don't get full scholarships, do they? Or they
well,
get partial
well,
scholarships.
that's where I'm going to go with this. There's many D2s that give full scholarships, but here's how it's going to work. I have a roster of, let's just say 10, and I have $100,000 for the scholarships. Well, Cece, I'm gonna give you and Matt. I'm gonna give y'all a full. I believe you're one of them ones, Matt. So you guys are getting full. Well, that means the rest of my stuff may be the other 8 players are splitting $40,000. You know what I mean? So they're on partials. You go. So they're already used to how this proportionate scale is when they do it for their scholarships. So when it comes now to NIL Division One and how to manage that, which is why you see people getting these general managers now, you got to figure that out. Like, what is our cap? How much should we really be offering Cece? Like, do we really think she's gonna turn us around like that? Like, you got to figure that out because once I give you, that means I got to go fill the roster. If I got to get a shooter, well, now I can only offer you 35,000. You're like, well, Africa State can offer me 140,000. You're not going to win. They're going. They're out. You know what I mean? Like, so from that standpoint, everything is proportionate. Um, I haven't seen it impact the locker rooms. The locker rooms are impacted before NIL.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
already, toxic ones, jealous ones, envious ones. Why is she always
Click, forming clicks. That's a big
right?
one. You got your clicks that are forming over here, and it's just
I'm happy you said that. I want to go back to the very beginning of this conversation. It's one of the reasons I wouldn't want you in my facilities once you've entered the court. I don't need you poisoning the rest here. You know what I mean? We're still building a culture here. The season's over, but I got 4 people in here busting their butt working in the spring, going toward the summer. I don't need somebody here with a whole different mindset that's not conducive to us winning and pushing each other and so forth. Not saying it's automatic that the players wouldn't be, but your mind is not here. Your mind is already wherever you decided to go. And I want people whose minds are here, bodies are here, souls are here, futures are here, so that you can permeate this culture with some toxicity, going forward.
absolutely. I agree, and that's the one big thing that concerns me is you see players that have been, oh, this is a great team. I love my teammates, and da 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 da. The whole season have talked to coaches, have accepted their
Yeah,
role, and so on and so forth. And then all of a sudden, when they decide to jump in the portal, Now it's yak, 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 yak. You know what I mean? Again, no self accountability, but now they deflect to it's the team's fault, it's the coach's fault, it's the player's fault, it's this, that, and the other. And that's the one thing that when players go into a portal, they can't do that stuff. You know, it hurts them because look, if I'm a player, right? If I'm a player and I've been good the whole season with my teammates, you know, I've been doing what the coaches ask and so on and so forth. I'm not getting the playing time that I want. So I made the decision to go in the portal, right? I go commit, and
Mhm.
after I commit, I start yapping. My concern is you know, I should be concerned about what if that coach that I just committed to hears me yapping about the previous coach that I'm leaving.
And see, that's the thing that pisses me off, right? It pisses me off because there always seems to be a soft spot for the player, right? Somebody's like, oh, it's all right. Yeah, I'll take you. Not only will I take you, I'll give you some money, right? So you didn't really learn that how you behave, right? And the things that you spread, um, and how you showed up, right? Because that means you're fake. You know
Yep,
what I mean? That means you're fake.
absolutely.
If I got a Jordan deal and we get some Jordan, I'm like, let's give it to all my teammates. But you don't even like me. And then, give me my goddamn shoes back. Give me my shoes back. Give me my bracelet back because I rather I'm one of them people. Tell me up front, you know what, man, Cece, I don't really care for you. You can stay on that side. I'll stay on this side. It's just business. Okay. But
Yeah.
let's not be fake and phony and having coaches pour into you and speak well of you publicly and try to set you up for sponsorships and NILs and
Success.
internship in life, and then you gonna piss on me. I just don't think that's cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I really don't.
Yeah, it's crazy. The other thing I want to ask you about is how do you feel about, and I know we're short on time, but I want to ask you, we got two more things we got to get to. How do you feel about, I just saw something on Twitter today about a player. This is a men's player
Hmm.
coming to SC that's 26 years old. So he's 26 years old and he's coming to SC to play, which is great for SC. But I think there's a difference when you have a 26-year-old playing college versus a 22-year-old going to the NBA. I just think that because now you're a 26-year-old playing with 17, 18, 19, and 20-year-olds. I mean, how's that work? You know what I mean? I don't think it's a bad thing. I'm just trying to figure out the dynamics because there's a maturity level from between an 18-year-old and a 26-year-old. There's a lot of growth.
Right,
You know, so
right.
what are the expectations that coach is putting on the player? And should players be allowed to continue going to school and playing on an athletic team, past the age of 24?
I'm gonna say yes. I'm gonna say yes. Hey, we're in America. It's about land of opportunity. It's opportunity. I'm also gonna say that you mentioned some team dynamics that'll be tough. They're either gonna be really, really tough, right? Or it's gonna be really, really great because you got. I had an older guy on my college team. We used to call him Grandpa, right? But he was really good in terms of all of the structure that we necessarily coming in at 17, 18. He's like, I wouldn't do that. Or if you do that now, and then get your work in and then go do that. Make sure you get. So there's some value there, depending on that particular individual person. Um, and if I could put
We
them,
saw that with the Ivies, by the way. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but we
absolutely,
saw
no,
that with the
absolutely,
Ivies.
yes,
The
yes,
Ivies, the Ivies, not that they were 26, but they were older. That
mm-hmm,
they weren't into themselves. And we
hmm,
saw the Ivies and how they came in and created and cultivated a culture for USC that led them to a final eight. You know what I
hmm,
mean?
hmm,
And to me, it wasn't all about talent. It was all about the culture, the maturity, the IQ, and knowing and understanding the goal. Because you have young kids that understand the goal and say they want that goal, but they don't know how to really, really take on the role and buy into it.
hmm. And what you say, I love that you use the Ivies as we're talking about the 26-year-old guy and the Ivies, and they're past the pomp and circumstance. You know what I mean? As an example, a high school person getting recruited, you guys have seen the pictures in the hotel, and they got the Kit Kat on the bed with the bow tie and picture. Let me tell you something. Somebody that's 23, and in the portal and knowledgeable, they're like, you know what? I don't even need the Kit Kat on the bed. Let's talk about fit and film and you know,
Let's watch some film.
right?
Let's watch some
Let's
film.
film and how can we help each other in life? You know, the perspective is different. That same perspective can really galvanize the team in a way. When you because they provide great leadership because they're just in a different place mentally, right? They're in a different place mentally. They can really, really take that and sprinkle that in the team. It's like having multiple coaches, some on the floor,
Yep.
you know, and so I think it could be a positive.
Yeah. And you saw, I mean, I'm just, I don't think that the team that Lindsay Gottlieb put together with the Ivies, I don't think was another team,
Mhm.
nationally that were able to do what that team did mentally. Because here you
Mhm.
had three stars. Caitlin Davis was
Mhm.
a star at Columbia.
There you go.
Mackenzie Forms was a star at Harvard,
Mm-hmm.
and Kayla Padilla was a star at what
At
school?
Penn.
At
At Penn.
Penn, and she
Uh-huh.
was the leading scorer. She came in and just bought into the role, didn't care, did what she was asked to do. And so I just think there's a big difference in maturity when you have older players like that are over themselves. They
Mm-hmm.
still have goals that they want to achieve and things that they want to do in life, but they want to cultivate the culture and do what it takes to win. That is such a big maturity level to get from your freshman year to that age.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's nobody's fault. Just
Mm-hmm.
freshmen come in with a sense of I was good at my school, I can be good here too.
Mm-hmm.
You
And,
know
and,
what I
and
mean?
it's great to have that confidence. But maybe at your school, you didn't know how to work. You were just the best player, the best talent. Here, everybody can move. These are grown women, you know, so you got to learn how to work. You got to learn. One thing you guys talk to freshmen all the time, and I always say, what's the biggest adjustment? They were like, man, time management. Time.
Yep.
So when I have an older player that can help me just with time management, how to really prioritize things, how to take care of my body away from the facility, how to manage my meals, right? Like all of that is showing you how to be a professional, right? Because you have to be professional in this environment. You're carrying my brand, you know. So I just think it's incredible to have that level of expertise and experience in your locker room.
Yeah. And as we
Right, we're
segue to
winding
the final
down.
segment,
Yeah, winding
well,
down
we
the
just
show.
got
We need to get our guest out on time. Yep.
So,
you got a few more minutes, Cameo. I just want
yeah.
to touch on one more
Mhm.
thing. There's one thing I want to touch on, and that's how you value a player. What are the player values? Like if a player comes in and they think that they're worth 250K, what makes a player worth 250K?
Right. And so I think it goes back. So one, we at that particular school, are you worth it? Maybe at LSU, a $250,000 player is a six man, you know, because of what their cap is, right? But for me, when you start getting into six figures, you're at least a starter. You're coming in, and you're a starter, right? So I have franchise, starter, I mean, impact, starter, rotation. Those are the three tiers that I have. If you're not in them three tiers, I don't even know what you're asking me for $100,000 for. I don't even understand. So I could take your 3.5 points per game that you've averaged for 3 years. Then the possibility, CC, you're about to average 3.5 points a game, and you want me to pay you $200,000. So the problem is some of these schools are paying this money because remember nothing's set yet. And I don't know if it was you and Matt that talked about confidentiality and knowing what everybody's paying.
Me, yeah.
Um, the problem is there's no master board like the NBA and WNBA anywhere. And oh, this is what everybody's getting. So I can go ahead and determine what your rate is because the market rate is ABC. And we don't have that. So it's a lot of hearsay and rumors. And so for Cameo, I got what the value is, you know, franchise, you know, impact, rotation. And I'm going to give, I'll probably give my impact player, that franchise type player, 35%.
I
You
think
know,
that's why you see agents steering kids towards certain schools too, because
I know it.
the more money their athlete can make, the more money they can make. You know what I mean? So
Absolutely. So I think no one has it down pat yet. Um, I will give you guys this nugget, and I will text you guys off to tell you who it is. The portal is so impactful that there was a coach that was at Blue Williams tournament, one in Phoenix. They're on the same staff, and the assistant was like, "We're talking about money and what players want, and the portal was so impactful, and high school players, and we're really going for these portal players." That the head coach called her and said, "It's been a day. Why are we even out here? We're gonna go get the players out of the portal anyway," and told her to go home. She was supposed to be there 3 more days, 2 more days, and him. And I'm driving that home to say the impact of the portal. So those people now, the people in the portal know that. And if you're a hooper, they're like, "Oh, shoot, they gotta pay me. Somebody's gonna pay me the money." And somebody is. And so schools are really pricing themselves out without realizing it. Because like, shit, I gotta get the 6'3" player. I know they wasn't nothing over here, but I may not even get one. So what do we gotta pay them? 110. It's like there's no rhyme or reason why you're paying them
yeah,
110, right? But
it's crazy to me too because you have sports that aren't profitable. They're paying out more money than they're making. You know what I mean? And so how does that dynamic work? I mean, how are you going to fix that?
but at some point, that's what I'm saying. At some point, the model doesn't work. And I don't know if you saw, I did one on South Carolina. Love South Carolina. Good friends with Don. The year they won and went 38-0. What you guys know, they went 38-0. They were 5.3 million in the red. I'm gonna tell y'all, it was five. You can Google it on your phone. It was 5.3 million in the red. This is South Carolina. So at some point on the women's game, there's got to be more merch sold, more TV deals, something. Otherwise, this model is not sustainable,
Yeah.
right? The model is not sustainable. Um, and at some point, and that's South Carolina. Like, so what happened with all these other people? You know what I mean? You cannot, these programs are starving in fundraising. I did get that, so I'll leave you guys with this. I asked the coaches, what are they spending the majority of their time on now? You should be fit and find the right player. They're like, fundraising. They're trying to figure out how to fundraise. Oh man, I only got 60,000 NIL. Okay, I got to at least get up to 250. Like, otherwise, I won't be able to compete. You know what I mean? I'm like, wow. Like, times have changed, guys. Times have changed.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And
All right,
all of
Cameo, I
this,
know you got to go.
yeah, all of this begs for a follow-up. I'm sure we will have a follow-up with National Basketball Scout Kameo Williams, because like this is an ongoing conversation. We're
It
all
is.
learning
It
on the
is.
fly. I love Cece's educational aspect of this podcast. Kameo Williams, Gems in the Gym, thanks for joining us. We know you have a meeting to get to. We really
Yes.
appreciate your time.
Hey, thank you guys so much. Stay positive, everybody. It's a lot of changes, right? But we'll be here to inform you. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cameo. Talk to you later.
All right.
All right.
So, Cece, we said goodbye to Cameo, so this gives you the chance to plug your YouTube and your Substack.
Yeah, what a great conversation. I love having Cameo on because he's so insightful, and we can actually have a conversational where I may see something different than him, and it's a great educational opportunity for everybody involved, including our listeners. So listen, you guys know you can check me out on YouTube. I have the Miss Mendez film breakdown, the Cara Dunn film breakdown, Cynthia Cooper podcast, Lindsay Gottlieb podcast, Matt and I podcast, also available on all streaming services now, Apple, Spotify. Everything that I'm uploading to YouTube is going to the streaming podcast platform as well. Substack, I have a story coming out tomorrow. I've written it. I just got to put it on Substack. So busy. And it's always fun to do a podcast.
Yeah, CBS Sports National college basketball analyst John Rothstein likes to say, we sleep in May. We're not going to be sleeping in May. We're going to be giving you more podcasts because as you all got a sense of with Kameo Williams, we did a previous show with him, but now in this one as well, he peels away the layers of the onion. He gets into the details of what's going on, the tensions, the variables was a word he used, and how all these things fit together. And this is just an evolving conversation that Cece and our podcast will continue to explore. Any final words, Cece, before we go?
No, just fight on. Everybody stay positive out there. Be active. Set some goals. Enjoy life.
Great way to send us off into another day as April winds down, month of May continues, and the people in the portal, they're still making their decisions. USC still looking for some front court pieces, and as Cece always likes to say, we're going to be good. We're going to be fine. We have Coach G piloting this ship, but as soon as USC lands another piece in that portal, we will be here with another USC Women's Basketball podcast.